What is up, Honey Badger Nation? Welcome to episode 189 of Expert Mentors Live, and I'm excited for today's guest. We have the one and only Gina Hanson with us. Gina, what's up?
I am doing good. How are you all doing?
Doing good. We got to deal with this head cold thing. We were talking before we went live. It's got to be allergies or something, and then you informed me that you tried to poison your husband every day with your oak trees.
Yep. My husband's definitely allergic to grass and oak trees and something else that grows here. So we moved from the place where he had no allergies to the dead center of Florida with oak trees everywhere. And the poor guy's dying 24/7.
It's miserable. Miserable. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate you jumping in and hanging with the Honey Badger Nation. And I know you're going to drop a ton of value. I know every opportunity that either on the leaders call, I know you joined Al and I on a Honey Badger Q&A call, and just always bringing tons of value. And that's really, what Expert Mentors is all about. And, the Honey Badger Nation is 11,000 plus and growing by the day. And, that was the whole intent when we started this series back 4 years ago, was really to tap into the horsepower that we have inside of the Honey Badger Nation. And we have so many amazing, talented entrepreneurs, rock stars, human beings that just love to share and give back. And I know today's going to be no different. So welcome and give everybody just kind of a little bit of background, a little bit of story. I know a little bit about you, but definitely kind of lay some context for everybody.
All right. So I started in 2007 up in Washington State, which is right as the real estate market tanked. I watched half of the realtors in the area leave, in the Hayden Nation actually leave. And I couldn't figure out if I was stupid because I really wanted to stay in this industry. I had to figure out quickly how to make things work. I am a logic, puzzle, number, game geek. And I decided that the only way I was going to figure this thing out was to dive into the numbers and use those numbers to tell a story. And so that's really how I started to build my entire career. I eventually ended up being a team leader for 7 years, crisscrossed the country a few times. Now I am in Florida. I'm on the Global Investor Agent team. I'm a coach on that team. I own my own coaching company also. And that's sort of how I got from there to here.
I love it. Definitely a lot in there. So how has the numbers and kind of geeking out on problem solving? I know the answer because kind of the same way, but how has that, really served you well in kind of the business side of things with real estate?
Oh my gosh, I love numbers and I love solving puzzles. And I believe that we are paid in direct proportion to the level of problems that we can solve. And when we open up our brain to it's a puzzle or a problem, it's not a problem, it's a puzzle, we unlock the ability to solve that. And so it's just a constant digging in of, all right, how do I solve this? One of the ones that we just ran across actually was how to tell. We all know we're on the precipice of, most of us know we're on the precipice of a shift, and we can see it in some areas and not others. And everyone's trying to put their finger on it. And what is it going to look like? And when's it going to happen? And is it in my area? Is it not? And because I coach across the entire country, I had to figure out some way to quantify it so that we could tell, yes, it's definitely starting to hit in your area. And this is how, or no, it's not. You're still climbing like crazy. So we developed something called the trends report. So I can walk you through that if you want.
Absolutely. I think this would be extremely beneficial for everybody.
Cool beans. Okay, so here's what I had people do. And I can't remember. I think it was DC where it popped up first. I was coaching a girl up there, and she had a property listed quite a few months ago, actually. And she said, it's not moving. I said, you're overpriced. And she said, no, everything's moving. And I said, something's going on. and I need to get a grasp of what's going on. And I'm not in DC, I'm in Florida. So I don't have access to the numbers. So I had her do this before our next call. I said, I just want you to pull 3 reports. Pick an area, either pick the area that this is in, pick a school district, pick a neighborhood, pick the city, I don't care, but pick an area, zip code, whatever. Once you have that area picked, I want you to run a report on the MLS, find your report that is just a single line of every single thing that's sold in that area. Don't filter it by bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, nothing. Just run the raw report. I want everything that's sold in a 30-day window. Once you have that report, and I'm looking for the one specifically that does the averages across the bottom, and the numbers I'm looking for are average days on market or cumulative days on market, either one's fine, average list price and average sales price. And if it will give you the list price over sales price ratio, great. If not, it's a real simple math calculation. I think it's sales price divided by list price. You'll know if the number is wrong, and if it's wrong, just flip those 2 figures. But I think it's sales price divided by list price. But I want that report. So once you find that report, run that for the past 30 days, print it, and then run me another one, but go back and run it from 31 to 60 days, and then run it again from 61 to 90. So you've got 3 reports. And then once I have that, then I'll be able to look at those numbers and see what's going on. So she ran it and got it over to me. Well, the first thing we went through is days on market. Days on market, if it's 14 or below, it's a fake number. And what I mean by a fake number is this. You listed the house on Thursday. You probably got every offer in by Friday, Saturday at the latest. You could have negotiated through and gone pending on Sunday, but you purposely held that house open for another weekend. So you purposely held it open another 7 days until you went pending the following Monday or Tuesday or whatever day. So maybe there's 10, maybe 11 days on market. But really, you could have listed it and had your offers in, I don't know, 10 minutes flat. It's crazy, right?
Yes.
So 14 days and below is a fake number. 15 days and above, we're starting to get into some real numbers. And we're also moving out of multiple offer situation. And I know this because there's no way that if it says 22 days or 28 or 30 or 19 even, you're probably not in a multiple offer situation. You probably got one offer, you negotiated through, and then you went pending. So the first thing I'm looking at in that trends report, when I put those 3 reports together, I'll run a little graph that just shows me the 3 months, the days on market, list price, sales price, and those ratios. And then I look for the story. So in her case, the days on market had gone from something like 9 to 13 to, I don't know, 27 or something like that. It was wow. And here's why that's really important. An average agent is never going to look at this. All they're going to do is run a CMA, and it shows, bedroom, bathroom, plus or minus 200 square feet, 2-mile range, whatever, last 30 days. And you'll see, like, maybe you see 18 days on market. And if you see 18 days on market, you're like, whoa, hot neighborhood. And it is. But if you know that it was 7 and then it was 11 and now it's 18, now you know the real story. And the real story is you're moving out of multiple offer situations and into single offer situations. So that's what a trends report is. When we ran it again, I had another client up in Nashville area. This was winter. So a few months ago, we ran it again. And I don't ever know what the story is. I just know that it tells me what the story is. So I ran it again, and what we saw there was the days on market were pretty average or pretty stable, but that list price to sales price ratio came way down, and that sales price was flat all the way across. And so as we're looking at it, I was, okay, what's the story? How do I sell this? Well, the story is, Mr. Seller, look, we are seeing that our list price to sales price ratio is tightened up now. We need to be very, very careful on our pricing. We no longer can ride that equity run up that everyone's been doing. Price a little above the market's going to catch up to you, piece of cake. You couldn't be sloppy anymore. You had to be really tight. Now, since then, Nashville's coming back out of it again. But when you're using this, sell it. So run the reports and don't just do the graph. Actually, when you're sitting down with your client, draw it out, but it gives you a reason to call. And then it gives you a reason to talk to your client. So here's what I mean by that. You can show people reports and they don't know how to see it. But when you're selling, I need you to look here, and then I need you to look here. This is what this means. And then you go through and explain it. Mr. Seller, I know you've been waiting because you wanted to wait till we're at the peak of the market. But what we're seeing right now is I believe we are at the peak of the market, and it looks like we're starting to shift away from that. You might want to list now before you lose that opportunity. Mr. Buyer, I know you've been waiting for the market to cool down. What we're seeing is that we're moving out of multiple offer situations, and many of our buyers are now getting their first offers accepted.
Yep.
By now, you're aware that the interest rates are only going one direction. I don't want to see you priced out of the market. So that's a trends report. The other way to use it, I love this report, is if you guys are running across the objection, I'm sure you're hearing this one out there, John, the I can't sell because there's nowhere to go. Right? So the thing of it is people are either moving up, down, or out. That's pretty much what they're doing. So for people that are moving up, run a trends report on their area and then run another one on the area they're looking to move into. Chances are you're going to see better numbers or more favorable numbers for buying there, even if they're slight. So maybe the list price to sales price ratio on that lower price range is 109 or 110, but in that higher price range is 101. Well, Mr. Seller, what this means is you're going to get 10 cents extra on the dollar on what you're selling, but you're only going to pay a penny on the dollar extra. So you can use that report for that. If you're moving out, a lot of times we're seeing this mass exodus out of the city into the more suburban or rural areas.
Right.
Again, same thing. Those trends reports will show that, where you're actually going to get top dollar for what you're selling, and you're going to be able to pick something up that's got some better ratios for you. So it's just a really good multi-use report that you can really dive into the numbers and what they are for that area.
Yeah. And Jay and I've been talking about this the last few weeks, is that you have to get back to being able to show them. The days of telling them are not going to work.
Mm-mm.
You have to be able to put the data in front of them and show them, and then kind of articulate, like you said, what does this mean? And then ask them the question, hey, based upon what you're trying to accomplish, your goals, where do you think we need to be positioning your home in today's market? And I know, you like that word, right? You like positioning. I do too. And, we never called it a price reduction. We just said, hey, we need to have a conversation about how we need to reposition your home in today's market. So let's look at what today's market really is. And I think what you're talking about with the trends report, lets our clients kind of get a grasp of what today's market really is.
Right. I love it. Love it. Love it. We called it a property positioning report is what we did. So when I was calling people and they would say, well, just send me a CMA. I say, nope. And you always get on the other end of the phone. I'm like, I don't do CMAs. Average agents do CMAs. They do property positioning reports. It's just a fancy name for a fancy CMA. So it's not anything. It is. We all your stuff.
we always talked about death of the CMA, and that's how we used to position against competition, was that, hey, the average frustrated agent's going to come in here and give you a CMA.
Yep.
And the CMA is dead. And so I like yours. I like a property positioning report. So talk to us, kind of what that, outside of being a fancy CMA, is there anything else that you kind of throw or put in there to look at as we're talking about how we're going to position their property?
Love it. So the dead CMA is just the past. That's all it is. It's a look snapshot backwards to say what was happening there. Yep. So I did that. We brought that with us. We also brought in what's currently going on. We also brought in a market absorption rate. So the way that we did that, we just ran a raw list of every single thing that sold in the past year in that area, did it in date order. And then I would draw a line separating out the months. And so this month, on average, 5 houses sell in your neighborhood. And then I'm also going to look at what's currently listed. So right now, Mr. Seller, I've got 7 houses listed, which means if I don't price you in the bottom 5, all we're going to do is sell your neighbor's house. So that's one of the ones that we did. We also ran that same raw list of everything that sold, but we put it in address order. And then all I'm looking for there is I called it an opportunities report. So I'm looking for who's flipped and what have they done? And that gives me the information that I might need going into that, because I was a single listing appointment person. I did not do double listings or double appointments. So I was a single listing girl. So I needed to be able to walk in. I needed to know, what are the opportunities in this property? Is this neighborhood changing hands? What does it look like? What have they done, et cetera? So that gave me the information there. The other thing that we looked at, hang on, I have my notes in here. Um, I literally looked at pricing and pricing brackets. And what I mean by that is we priced on a bracket. And so we were looking at the brackets that the neighborhoods were going for. What that is just how people are looking nowadays. Everybody's looking at a bracket from 3 to 325, 350 to 375, et cetera.
Yep.
And I need to make sure that we're in the right bracket. So even if I have an anomaly of a house, I still need to make sure that I'm at the top.
Brackets. What bracket do we need to be in?
Exactly. And the thing with the bracket, report on that one is, Mr. Seller, I need you to think like a buyer right now. You're probably already doing that. You're probably going online looking for your new property, and you set in a set of brackets from this price to this price. And you're going through and you're going, nope, 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 nope. Maybe, yes. That's why I need you within a certain bracket, because you're not even seeing anything outside of that bracket. That's why we have to price it so carefully and make sure that we're in the right bracket. The reason why is, and I'd rather price right on a bracket at 325 or 350 or 375 and not 349,999, whatever.
Yep.
And the reason
that other bracket, you missed the bracket.
You missed the bracket. And if I have to reduce the price of your house or adjust the price of your house, I have to drop down a whole bracket. I can't do 5 or 10,000. I need to do $25,000 increments if I have to go down like that. So that's part. The cool thing with this, what's going on right now in the market, because it is still hot in many areas, if you're not sure on pricing and you're really having a rough time with it, if you price a little bit over, you're going to know instantly. The same rule of thought's always been there. It's 15 days. If you don't have an offer in 15 days, even when the market sucked, it was still a correctly priced house will sell within 15 days, or will get their offer in 15 days. But it's the NAR stat is 10 showings, 2 weeks, no showings, or 10 showings, no offer, either one. So that's if you're overpriced. If you're underpriced, the market's going to drive it right up.
Yeah.
So you're really safe right now with your pricing, but you still want to know what you're doing, and you want to be able to protect your seller, and you don't want to have to go through having to do price adjustments down an entire bracket.
100%. You don't want to chase it down. I mean, it's just because that's what it is. You're just chasing.
Yep.
And so a couple things there, everybody, listening in, you're like, well, damn, man, that's a lot of data. Are you going to overwhelm people? You have to remember, most of the people that you get in front of, especially if you're doing volume and, you're getting in front of and you're focused on listings, you only have so much of a sphere that you can get in front of on a listing basis. So you're meeting with people that fully don't trust you yet.
Mm-hmm.
And everything Gina is explaining to you guys, this is super critical. And it's super critical for where the market's going moving forward. And we can talk about that because I have a real freaking hunch of where the market's going. And you have to position yourself as the authority. Mm-hmm. And for us, it's always been, when they start get the glazed over with the data, we got them. They're mm-hmm. like, I trust you. You know what, you're the expert. You know what you're doing. Then you can go into being able to articulate your process, and do they believe that you have the best process? They now understand that you know how to position their home to help them accomplish their goals. You guys have got to get this. And I don't know, Gina, you probably know the statistic of the number of agents that are licensed in the market today that have been licensed for 3 years or less. It's astronomical. It's high, isn't it?
It is, but I don't know that exact number. But I do know last time who left the industry. Do you know what that number is, or what the percent? Oh, I just know it's high. Last time in 07, 8, 9, 10, who left when I was analyzing who was leaving the industry, and we went from 1.8 million agents to 1.2. That's realtors, by the way. Went from 1.8 million realtors to 1.2. That doesn't count commercial and non-realtor agents, salespersons. So we lost basically half. And I kept on looking around at who was leaving. And the two groups that were leaving were the ones that were going to retire anyway. They saw the writing on the wall. They've been through it a bunch, and they were like, not doing this one again. And they just got out. And then the other group was about the 5-year veterans. And it took me a while to figure out, why are they leaving? And they're leaving because they came in and they rode the wave up. And all ships rise with the tide. And all they really had to do was look pretty and stick a sign in the yard. That's pretty much it, And they didn't have to learn how to do this business.
No skills. No
Yep.
skills.
None.
No skills. And
None.
so like you guys have to get this if you want to survive. It's an astronomical number, 3 years or less. So think about the market over the last 3 years. And it's been pretty much the same way. Hey, if you got a good smile, you look sharp, present yourself well, stick a sign in the yard, you're good.
Mhm.
And we would always talk about this because we had seen it in price point markets. Us, honestly, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for our market. Our market, during the time when we were really dialing things in, average price point was, below 120. And so when you know this, when you're playing in that market, details matter. I's dot, T's crossed, everything matters. And you look for all the ways to expand the transaction price with transaction fees, vendor affiliates, like we're doing flips. I know you have an extensive background in flips. So we're doing flips, we're doing developments. We've got a team, we've got multiple people, like we own title. Hey, how do we own mortgage? How do we own this other? Because you have to do all of those things. And what we would see is we would see agents in, 3, 4, 5, 600,000 price point markets get rewarded for bad behavior.
Mhm.
And what's happened to a massive amount of the agents that have not been disciplined over the last 3 to 4 to 5 years have been rewarded for bad behavior, and they're about to learn a lesson. And so like fundamentals, get back down to the skills. You need to be able to articulate your value, what's your proven process, that the person you're sitting in front of believes. They believe, not you. They don't believe Gina. They believe Gina's process can help them accomplish what they're wanting to accomplish. So you guys have to get everything what Gina's talking about here is crucial moving forward. You have to know the data. You have to know how to pull the data. You know how to present the data, how to articulate the data to be able to demonstrate your expertise, or it's going to be a rough ride.
I love what you said also about when their eyes glaze over. I love that. We so use that. We use two things. We use eyes glazing over on the buyer rep appointments, and then we used fear when we listed. We completely, once I saw them, then I knew that was it. And then I went for the close every single time. For the buyer rep agreement, we would sit down with the whole, we would show them the first property. If they just called up out of the blue, safely showed them the first property. We made the property walk through, and then we didn't do anything else until we sat down and did buyer rep agreement. And what we did is I said, hey, look, we might have to be writing the offer on the hood of a car. It might have to go that quickly. What I would really like to do is sit down with you in my office, and I'd like to go through the contract. You're never going to retain all of it, but you'll retain a good portion of it. And if we have to write really quickly, it's going to go really smooth and we can just crank it out. Yeah. And yep, they always agree. And then I sat down with this 3-ring binder. I would do it on computer, and I would bring both now. If I was actively selling today, I would bring both, because 60 and up is probably going to be paper, and below there's about a 5-year range where it could go either way. And then below that, they're going to be computer. So just bring both. So I would sit there and I would flip through a contract upside down. And by the way, you need to know your contracts upside down or with the screen not facing you, where you can say, this means this, this means this, this means this, sign date. You need to know it on that level, because it's live or die by the contract. Like you said, we had to have our I's dotted and our T's crossed. So in buyer rep, this means this, this means this, this means, and we went through the entire purchase and sale agreement. And when their eyes were completely glazed over and they were lost, and you could tell that they were practically in a coma, I said, awesome, I need you to sign right here. This protects me and it protects you, sign date. And that's how I got them signed every single time. And they weren't necessary to be signed. I just was not going to get screwed out of my business by someone who wasn't going to sign anything. And I'm not going to work with you. I'm just not going to do it. And the irony is I went from Washington State, where they weren't required, and then they became required. And I heard the agents grumble like crazy. And I'm like, what? Like, we already do this. I went from there to Virginia, where I became a team leader, where they weren't required. And I worked with my agents, and I'm like, it's going to happen. Trust me, this is going to happen. And it did. And then I went from there to California, same exact thing. I'm like, might as well get used to it. It's going to happen. And then on the listing side, we would do, oh my gosh, when the market sucks, this is such a good report to do. We did a raw list of every single thing that was listed in a given range around their property, a radius. And I might pull this radius in or out a little bit in order to get what I'm looking for. And what I'm looking for is a piece of paper with a ton of stuff listed. And then I do the same exact thing, but what sold in the last 30 days. It was a list about this long. And so I would say, "Are you ready to see what's going on in your neighborhood?" Yes. And I would slap down that first report. I'm like, "Here's every single thing that's listed in your neighborhood." And it's a whole page. And they're like, "Wow." And okay, but there's still nothing there. And then I would slap down the second page, which is this. I go, "And here's everything that's sold in the last 30 days." And when they went, "Oh, yep, you ready to do the paperwork?" And they're ready to do the paperwork because they know, you know what you're doing. This is what I do, you know? So I love that. I love what you were talking about.
You brought something up a little bit earlier, and I wanna get your take on this. I've always been kind of a fan of this when it comes to pricing and positioning in the market, right? Like price is elastic basically to the variables, right? How many of the variables you want to proactively manage, top, middle, bottom of the market, your choice. What do you want to do? And so, we've always, professional photography, always either a full stage or kind of what we coined as a 2-hour touch up with our stager. So they would come in 2 hours, work with what the client has in their home, work through two things, get it ready, professional photography. In Dallas, we did pre-inspect. We just did it. We paid for it. We knocked it out. We knew what it was. Lawton, depends. Just different markets, different homes, different issues, different things. We tried it. Don't want to mess with it, but you got to do those. Those are like table stakes to me. You have to do those. You should have been doing those all along, even over the last 3 to 5 years. And so, because it's the matter of getting, an extra 50,000, on a $500,000 home, it's 50, 75, 100,000 more just by doing those fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes down to really, how are we going to price this? I'll never forget. I learned this lesson from one of our longtime clients. He's a good friend, Harley Dufek. Harley was in him and his partner Chris. They were in Seattle, was their market, and Harley was the listing agent. And he always, this is 13, 14, 15, just 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, just that run. He would always position just a little bit below. He created demand, and he sold every damn house above ask price always. And it was always more than what he thought. That was just his pricing strategy. I loved it. He just a little bit below, created the demand, rose the price. So for you, kind of you've flipped, you've sold so many houses, you've done this, working with clients and sell. Kind of what is your kind of go-to kind of positioning pricing strategy?
I love this. I looked at price per square foot. Everything else being equal, I really relied on my price per square foot. Once I nailed down my price per square foot, which is a super easy number, I dropped it down to the next bracket. So if it came in at 212, you listed at 200. We did not list at 212, 215, 225. We're not testing the market out. We're not doing any of that crap. And so I only took one overpriced listing my entire real estate listing career, minus my very first one, which was a land deal, which I lost and did not know what I was doing. Once I learned that lesson, I only took one overpriced listing ever. Everything always priced dead on where it needed to be, because I couldn't chase the market down. I was in a declining market. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is when I was actively selling, a bit of 12. Yeah, exactly. I couldn't, there was no wiggle room. You had to come in, you had to come a little below the market.
You had to nail it.
Yep. My one overpriced listing, super busy road that went straight for, I don't even know how long, and then did this little jog and then went straight again. That little jog was about 2, maybe 3 houses. I mean, literally it did this. And it was the house right there, right on that jog. And I met with the guy, and I want it priced at this. I said, it's never going to sell, not doing it. He said, I don't care. I said, look, it's not going to sell. I said, basically what I'm going to be doing is putting a sign in your yard and capturing a ton of buyers. And he said, I don't care if it doesn't sell. I'm going to rent it. My cousin's brother's uncle, whatever, is moving up here in 2 months, and he needs a place to stay. And if that doesn't sell, he's going to do this. I said, fine, I'm not spending any money, no advertising, nothing. There will literally be a sign in your yard and that's it. And I positioned that sign right there. That's what you saw. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cars every day. I picked up like, I don't know, 8 or 10 buyers off of it. Didn't sell. That's the only overpriced listing I ever took. Other than that, I would beat you over the head and shoulders if I had to. Bloody, don't care, not doing it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to hate me. I learned in my real estate career, if I kindly and politely strong-armed you to do what needed to be done, you would love me. We might do this on the appointment, but you will love me when it's done. And if I don't, you will hate my guts and you will blame me, even though and I'm not doing it. I'm just not.
I love it. I'm laughing because we had an addendum in our seller addendum. We had a clause in there that the seller had to initial if we were taking the home and it was overpriced. We made them acknowledge they knew it was overpriced.
Oh, you reminded me of something else. Here's part of my other pricing strategy. I did short sales. And short sales, the banks were always coming back in and let's say that the house started out at 150 and you actually got your offer at 105 or whatever. Who cares? 100. The bank would always come and say, well, we want 125. And we're going to try and take your commission and. It was just a mess.
Oh yeah, always.
Yeah. So we priced at market and I started this process actually because I would go to get a price adjustment. It's a short sale. Nobody cares. All you want is an offer so we can start the negotiation with the bank. And the seller would be like, I don't want to. I'm like, what is wrong with you? It's a
We just got to get the process started.
Well, so on a listing appointment, I had 15 post-dated price adjustments and we just slapped them right in front of them. And if it was a super low, if it was below like 100K, we just dropped it $1,000 every single week. Boom, 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 boom. And if it was above that, we dropped it in 5 or 10K increments. And so when the banks came back and when we got our offer, it did 2 things for me. When the banks came back and said, we want X amount more, I just slapped it all down in front of them. Look, here it is. You ain't getting it. That's not going to happen. And so we got our price straight through. That was the first one. And the second one was, this is back in 2007, 8, 9. Nothing is selling. Nothing. I mean, 9 months on market is not unusual at all.
We had 200 in active inventory during that time.
I had 85. You just racked them up. You just kept on racking them up, man. So
they kept coming in. They kept coming in.
It's true. So I would call people. I would finally get my offer, or I get somebody who said they were interested, and the agent would say, "Hey, look, we're interested in 123 Main Street." I'm like, it'd be Wednesday. Every property we had reduced the price on Friday. It's just every single one. That's what we do. We reduce the price every single Friday before the weekend. So I get an agent called on Wednesday. We're interested in 123 Main Street. And I'm like, better put your offer in now. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Go look at the property history and you're going to see what's going on. I'm now getting interest. If you don't do it today before Friday, you're going to lose it. And sometimes they did and sometimes they didn't. But eventually they understood like, oh no, she's serious. I will lose it. Here's the beauty of that. When you build a system where you always do something the same way, the system will sell itself. You don't have to anymore. It will sell itself. Go look at it. That's what it does. We've done it every single week.
Yep. You've got to stay consistent. You got to have a system and that will give you predictable results. So walk us through kind of that system for you, kind of what that listing process kind of looks like and why it's important, even when you're competing, when you're going up against people, why you have to have a process where you stay consistent. And it doesn't matter if who you're competing against. Like we didn't care when we would go head to head with our number one competitor in the market. The only reason we would lose is because they bought the listing. Period. They bought it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. They would overprice it and they would drop their commission.
Yep. I had a girl that bought everything. I had 2 main competitors. One of them bought all of her listings, every single one of them. That's how she did it. And then the guy, what he would do is no matter what, which eventually they took his license away and everything else. And now the guy's a coach. And every time I run across any situation where I'm like, might want to look up his history on the state records. Yeah. Anyway, what he would do is every single time he underlisted the houses by such a ridiculous amount. And so when you put the offer in, he always countered back double. And so my buyers would come to me and say, well, I want to look at this. And I'm like, you're going to pay double. Well, no, I'm like, I'm just telling you, I'm your girl if you want to write, but you're going to get a counter back in 10 minutes. It's double. And they would. And I'm like, did you want to pay this? No. All right, let's go look at other properties. So that part aside. Okay. Listing appointment. Actually, first, competition. Let's talk about the competition.
Okay.
You probably know who you're up against. If you don't know who you're up against, and you can always ask when you've got a listing appointment, who am I up against? And just literally ask the question. No matter what, you never ever cut an agent, say anything bad, ever, 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 ever. It's always a great agent. I had a broker one time who called me up and we were talking when I was from Virginia, so we hadn't talked in a few years. And he called me up and he goes, "Do you remember so-and-so?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, you know that rule, the realtor rule that you're never supposed to talk bad about another agent?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay." Anyway, you probably know who you're up against. So go run their numbers, go look. You probably beat them somewhere. Either you beat them on days on market. The person who overpriced her listings, I ran a report of the original listing price and the actual sales price, and that ratio was this huge gap, the huge gap. And so when I actually went to my broker and I'm like, "Can I say this?" And I had the report, and she's like, "Do you have a report that shows it?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's right here." She goes, "Yeah, say whatever you want as long as you can back it up." So when I was up against that other agent, and they say, "Who am I up against? So-and-so." I would say, "She's a great agent. Her average list price to sales price ratio is 82.5. And they're like, they don't know what that number means. They think it's great. They're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Mine's 97.8. And it's just mic drop.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was
Yeah.
it. So look at your competition, look at their numbers, look at days on market, look at list price to sales price ratio. Are they a 1%er? I'll go up against a 1%er all day long. I have no issues going up against a 1%er. 1%, list the house at 1%. We sit down and we go through commission. We go through how it works. I personally love I'm going to back up. When you're looking at scripts and especially when you're newer and what to memorize and what not to memorize, really only focus in the beginning, especially on just 2 sections of scripts. The rest of the stuff, if you're on the phone talking to somebody, you don't have to memorize this. You can dang read it off a stupid piece of paper.
Yep.
So don't worry about those. Worry about 2 sets. Pricing, you need to know how to be able to handle price objections. And then your commission. Worry about those 2, because when you're in front of somebody, you can't go, "Hang on a second, let me pull up my script on how to handle this and deal with it." So my favorite on the commission one is the $6 bill one. You familiar with that one?
Oh, run us through that.
Okay, so I had 6 crisp $1 bills in my wallet. And if anyone started to fight me on commission, my first response was always, "Will you reduce your commission?" No. And then I would continue on. That was my first.
Non-negotiable.
Exactly. My second was, "All right, can I explain to you how commission works?" They always said yes. So I get my wallet and I get out these 6 crisp $1 bills. And so I've got them in front of me. And I go, "Okay, here's how it really works. Look, 3 of these are going to go to the other side, and I'm never even going to see them. So we're left with these 3. These 3 that are left, this one goes to cover all of the marketing expenses and everything that we've got going on with your property. This one goes to cover this one goes to my broker. Just right off the top, goes straight to my broker. This one goes to cover all the marketing expenses and everything that's going on with the property." And then you take the last dollar bill and you rip it in half. "And this one pays my continuing education." You're seriously going to take my half a dollar bill? And then usually, "Oh, okay." And I'm going to hold really firm.
Gina, we should have put some couple more crisp dollar bills in your wallet.
I know. Actually, one of the truth that I really did was I took 3.5% and I gave away 2.5. Is usually typically what I did.
Yeah, ours was always 7. We co-broke 3, kept 4.
Love it. So here's why I like that when I'm talking. So then they're like, "So-and-so said they list it for 1%. Okay, so Mr. Seller, now that you know the cost of doing business and you understand how it works, and you understand that really this is what what I'm left with is, how do you think someone who lists at 1% stays in business?" And you just kind of walk them through to where they finally realize, well, they have to do a lot of the transactions. They have to double end. When they did say they would list, did they say that if they got the buyer also, they were still doing 1%, or did they say that they were going to be giving 3% away so they get 4% if they did the buyer also? Oh, they said 4%. Okay, so I'm not saying this is true. It's exactly what I used to say. I'm not saying this is true, but what is the likelihood Now that you know that it's just, this is what I get, what is the likelihood that they have to double in their transactions and that you may not be seeing everything? What is that likelihood? And you just let it hang there, because I would rather you list with me and we list it at the price that we're saying that we're going to get it, and you get a much higher, because my list price to sales price ratio is high. You get a much higher price for your house because you're seeing everything, than possibly not seeing the really good offers because I have to double in the transaction because it's the only way I can stay in business.
Yeah.
And that's what I threw out there. So there's ways to beat your competition.
It's powerful.
Thank you. If you don't have the numbers, then use your office, use your team. If I was brand new and I didn't have the numbers at all, I would go talk to an agent that's got really good numbers in my area. And I would literally do a deal with that agent of, look, I'll give you X amount of percentage. I want to be on your team for a short period of time so that I can use your numbers also until I can get my numbers up. But you're going to beat their numbers somewhere. Okay, put that aside. Listing appointment. When I got a listing appointment, I only listed on Fridays. That was it. I set 4 appointments every single Friday because I hated being out in traffic, which was stupid in the Seattle area. So I was like, nope, that was it. I only listed on Friday. If I got the appointment on Thursday, we didn't list that Friday. It's probably already booked anyway. Listed the following Friday. I didn't care. I needed enough time to get you a pre-listing packet. Pre-listing packet is just fluff. The only thing that really I cared about in that pre-listing packet, and the reason why I used it, is I had a seller disclosure form in there. It was form 17. And the only reason I had that in there is I wanted some piece of paper, I don't care what it is, that has my name, your name, my company name, and a place for you to sign. And if it has those things on it, I don't care what form it is, it was going to go in that packet and go out to you. The packets were already pre-done. I had a whole stack of them. And then at the very last thing I would do was just take a form 17 that had their name on it, put it in there with a yellow sticky that said, hey, I'll see you Friday at 2 o'clock. And don't forget to get a copy of the key made. That's what they said. That went inside, got shipped off. When I showed up on the appointment and I asked you during the appointment about that pre-listing packet, if you had everything filled out in full and had some things highlighted because you had questions, probably a detailed person. We got a lot of questions we got to go through. If you lost the listing or you lost the pre-listing packet, you don't really know where it is, and probably a high, what we call a high I personality, a friendly, warm person that I need to make friends with in order for us to get it. If everything's filled out and you're completely compliant and it was waiting right there for me, that compliant type of a personality, that's what we're dealing with. And if you were like, yeah, I saw it, I didn't have any time, probably a driver personality. It told me more there than anything else. Okay, listing appointment. If my listing appointment was at 6 o'clock, I showed up at 6 o'clock on your doorstep. But what I really did was I was 10 minutes earlier than that, and I drove your neighborhood in concentric circles because I want to get an idea that what's next door to you, or what, is there a train track behind you? Is there stuff that unless I Google walk it, I'm not going to know that. And I want to get a feel. At 6 o'clock, I showed up. I had my sign. By the way, my trunk was full of all my listing supplies. So all I really had to do was crank out the actual listing paperwork. I could do maybe 4 in about 20 minutes, maybe, because you just get good when you're doing it all the time. It's just boom, 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 and you're done. So I show up at 6 o'clock. I put my sign on your front porch. My little yard arm sign went on your front porch. I put the super key lockbox on your door. The bottom of it where the key goes is in my hand. I knock on your door. When you open the door, I take a step back and I say, hey, my name is Gina Hanson. I'm with EXP, and we had a 6 o'clock appointment, and it's 6 o'clock. Did you get a chance to get that key made? What? No, I didn't. Okay, no big deal. Is it okay if I set my stuff down at your kitchen table? And so you're immediately taking control of the situation. And they're like, okay. So I go in, I set my stuff down at the kitchen table. They're always going to ask, well, do you want to look at the house first? Nope. I don't want to look at the house first. I don't care, actually. I can tell by what we're going to list by the living room. If the living room looks average, we're going to list average. If the living room looks like hell, I'm afraid of the rest of your house. If the living room looks great, we're going to list at the top. That's it. They would say, do you want to look at the house? I'm like, actually, I don't know if you want to work with me or not yet. And they're thinking, okay, well, yeah, I don't know if I want to work with you or not. And they're saying, frankly, I don't know if I want to work with you or not. And then they're shocked. And that's when I need them. And then I'm like, is it okay if I just ask you a few questions first? And then they're like, okay. And then the very next thing I do, can I please get a glass of water? I'm really thirsty. I want that for 2 reasons. One, I want them to wait on me. I want them to start, when I ask you things, I want you to do it. And the second is if I can't figure out what to say.
Gives you a pause.
Now I can figure out what to say.
Yep.
So you want that glass of water. Do not sit at the end of the table, sit on the side of the table with them. I can never remember which side it's supposed to be on, but whatever. Don't sit at the end if you don't want to play this.
Nope.
So next thing I do is I give them my business.
Gina does typically too, who
Yep.
grabs the water or who tells the other person to grab the water also give you an indicator of who the decision maker is?
Huge, huge. And you need to work with both, but know that that's your decision maker and the other one's going to follow with you. Yep. Absolutely. This next one I learned because I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, and a business card, when it is handed, is handed like this. It's literally handed like this. And the reason why is because this business card, you've put your time, energy, and effort, and it is a focus on you and who you are, and it has a little bit of you in it. And so it's treated with respect, which I thought was very weird. But what I learned is that if I hand you paper and I hand you the paper as if the paper is very important, you will treat it very important. If I just toss it down, my business card, and I toss it down, you don't really care about it. So I put my business card and slid it in front of both of you, so it's straight in front of you. And then the very next thing I did was I made this big, huge show of digging around in my purse. Hang on. And I dug around my purse, and I grabbed my phone, I turned my phone off, and I set it face down. At that time, my phone was set to vibrate. Now my phone does flashy. I want it to ring or flashy, or I want it to vibrate or do something, because I want you to understand that my phone is ringing a lot, but I'm never going to answer it. And I want you to turn yours off as well, because this is really important and we are here. So that went down there. And then the very next thing I did, this, by the way, is my entire listing presentation. It's right here. Grabbed a pad of paper, set it down, grabbed a pen, and said, all right, John, tell me what freaks you out about this whole situation. And you would do that.
Yeah.
And then I would say, there must be something. And you would come out with one thing. And then whatever that was, I would write it down. And then I'm looking down too long. And then I'm like, is it just one thing? Because if it's just one thing, this is going to be really easy. And then it would pour out. And whatever it is, I would just write it down. And just write. Okay. And then finally there will be a break and they will have finished whatever that freaks them out about it. And then you wait again a second too long. And then, is this everything? And you're nodding yes. And they're like, yes, it is. Okay. And I shoved it aside and I just talked. And I just made sure whatever was on that list, I covered on that list. And if I wasn't quite sure when I was done, maybe it was a long list, I would grab it back again and I'm like, okay, hang on. Boom, 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 boom. All right, we're good. So you guys ready to talk about what's going on in your neighborhood? And that is where the property positioning report and all of that came out. And we did, when I look at numbers, when I'm working with numbers on a person, it's from a 10,000 square foot and then you dial it down to their area. So it's very broad until it got down. So we talked about the neighborhood and then I said, okay, you guys ready to see what's going on with your property? Yes. And then we went through their property. And then once we went through that, are you ready to do the paperwork? It is not a contract. It is paperwork. If they said yes, great, we did the paperwork. If they didn't want to know about commission, we didn't talk about commission. If they didn't want to
explain why you don't want to say contract.
Contract has scary connotations. Okay, when you first walk in the door, they're scared. They're nervous. They don't know who you are and what you're about. I have to get you calm down and relaxed. The person who does the most talking feels the most loved. If I just ask you to pour out everything that you're stressed out about or worried about, and you've talked for 40 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, you feel very, very loved. We're very comfortable now. You feel listened to and loved. Everything's lovely. And now I'm starting to talk pricing and contracts and scary stuff. And so you try and eliminate as much scare as possible. So that's why it's paper.
That scare will create friction. And when we have friction, people don't make decisions.
Bam, they'll back away. You'll watch them just start to kind of do this kind of thing. And I got to keep you in here. So we did are you ready to do the paperwork? No. Okay. All right. And then you back off a little bit. So kind of let's talk, like what's going on? So I want to hear what the objections are. And then as soon as you hear the objection, isolate the objection. All right. What I'm hearing is is that the only thing? Like if we can get this thing figured out, we're good to go. And you're nodding yes again. Yeah. Okay. handle the objection, ask for the close again. If something else pops up, continue that process. Isolate it down, clarify what it is, isolate it down, handle it, ask for the close again. I'm not leaving until you sign paperwork. That's just flat out it. If I want that listing, we're signing paperwork. I have done, we want to talk first. I totally get that. My husband and I are the same way. Tell you what, I got a couple of phone calls. My phone's been ringing off the dang hook. I got a couple of phone calls I got to make. I'm just going to leave it here. I'm going to step out. I'll knock on the door when I'm back. And I'll get up and I walk right out. You're going to sign that. I'm going to give you time and I'm going to take it all away from you so that you don't have that. We're still not going to sign. I'm still not comfortable. I have actually said, look, let's just do this. It's just going to be a whole lot easier. Let's just get you to sign the paperwork. You keep the paperwork. I don't care. Just you sign it, you keep it. I can't do anything without paperwork. My office won't let me. So we'll just do this. And then you keep it. When you're ready, we'll go. And usually they will sign it anyway. And then if I can, I'm going to get that paperwork. If I can't, get it tomorrow. I don't care. Once they've put pen to paper, they're mine. I know they're mine. So I'm going to keep on doing that until I actually walk out with that listing. Now, they're freaked out. They've just signed something. I'm here. You have to get them back forward thinking again, and you have to get them excited.
Thinking about what they're trying to accomplish. What is their goal?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So shove it aside, literally, bam, shove it aside. Okay, now that that's done, tell me what you guys like, where you're going to go. What does it look like? What are we doing? And my energy went from very, very serious, are you ready to do the paperwork, isolate, handle, to bam, what are we going to do? And then you get them thinking, forward thinking again. And now I've got them where I want them. I have to leave them with next steps, because if I don't, the second I walk out the door, they're going to freak out again.
Yeah.
So always leave them with the next step. Okay, so the next step is this person's going to call you. My stager is going to get a hold of you. My this is going to happen. My that's going to, whatever it is, just leave them with the next steps. This is the last piece of this. The number one complaint of a listing agent or of a seller, they put a sign in my yard and I never heard from them again. You never want that to happen. So I would tell them every single time, I'm like, look, here's the deal. Every single Monday, you're going to hear from me. You are always going to know what's going on with your property. In between then, by all means, reach out, call me, text me, send me smoke signals. I don't care. Just reach out. If I'm with a client, I will not answer the phone, which they already saw because my phone's been turned off, going flashy, flashy for the last hour. If I'm with a client, I will not be calling you. I will call you, I promise, either in between my clients, and sometimes it gets really, really busy and it's kind of late at night, but I promise I'll always call you back. Okay. And now I've just trained them that I'm going to call them back. Leave me alone. I promise I will call you back. And once in a while, it did get kind of late because you have crazy days, and it might be 9:45 at night. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I promised I'd always call you back. I want to make sure that I always keep my promises. Are you guys okay? Half the time, whatever their situation was, it's already fixed, solved. They figured it out, whatever it is. So you've got to set it up again. If you set up the system will sell itself. So there you go. That's a listing appointment. When I switched to a yellow pad of paper from this big stupid presentation about my company does blah and all that stuff, my listing ratio went from about a 50% to an 85. And the only reason it wasn't higher is because I got no showed on occasion, which pissed me off. But that's how I listed.
I love it. It's great. There's so many nuggets in there, and there's key principles, right? And you look at, kind of even our process, we're still hitting on key principles that never change. And, really how you set the stage from when you come in to, being able to decide, know who the decision maker is, being able to then connect, build rapport, get them to start to be able to feel like you're really listening to them. And that's where I see a lot of people, they come in and they don't ask, they don't lead with questions. They just come in, this is what we do. And, the people are like, they're taken aback. So really have to make it about them. And, Gina, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I definitely want to hit on one thing because I know you geek out on the numbers. And what agents have to understand is that this is business. Mm-hmm. We are in business. And business is just math. What happens is agents bring all the damn drama into the story. And when you eliminate all of the drama, the math is real simple. So as agents moving into this, you know, I know it's going to be a good run for about the next 3 years. After that, it's going to get interesting. And then as we head into the end of the decade, all bets off. So moving forward, thinking about their business, what what numbers do they absolutely have to pay attention to?
I love this. In the beginning, I'm ADD, and I'm going to steal this from a line here. ADD, and you learn to track. You're taught to track everything, and I have struggled with it. It's so hard for me. Tally marks and spreadsheets and charts and graphs and trinkets dropping and marbles. Oh, good
You
Lord!
get busier, you just don't do it. So you got to keep it simple.
Yep. So exactly. So once I learned my numbers and I learned my conversion rates, which for me personally was 100 dials equals 20 contacts equals one appointment set equals 4 appointments on Friday. 4 appointments on Friday means I list 10 houses. Listing 10 houses, the buyer's agent sell. We sold 8. We lost 2 to the foreclosure steps. The buyer's agent sold another 8. Once I knew my numbers, I stopped that focus because I knew what it was. I knew exactly what it was. I knew how to dial it up or down. I shifted over to active listings in my active listing inventory. It's the only thing I went after. That's it. Because I know that for every about 15 listings I've got, I can feed an entire buyer's agent, piece of cake, just off of sign calls. And so I also know when you have 10% of a market, you're a head turner. You're absolutely, if you think about it, if there's, 10 listings or 100 listings, you have 10 of them and the rest are sprinkled all throughout, people are starting to see your signs and pay attention to you. When you have 20, you're starting to dominate a market. Dominating a market does not take 50% of the listings or 100 or 80 or whatever other number it is. You really got some serious, numbers pulling when you're pulling 20% or more of an area. And just go do the math. Go pull 20% and see what that looks like. I also know whoever has the inventory wins. I also know whoever has the inventory controls the market. And I also know whoever has the inventory can feed the buyer's agents. And I don't have to do any buying of any leads or anything. It's all off of what I'm converting over from that. So that's the only number I tracked because I know if I price it right, it's going to sell, period. It just will. So I'm going to track my active listing inventory. And if it goes pending the next day, it doesn't count. Only active. Now I'm still going to get calls off of it, but that's not the number I tracked. Just active listings.
Active listings.
Yep, that's it.
You're speaking my language. And, for all of you guys listening in and, really go back and Gina dropped so many nuggets. Go back, re-listen to this because for you to survive beyond the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years in this industry, you have to develop the capabilities and skill set to be able to acquire listings consistently and in a predictable way. If not, you might want to be thinking about another career choice because that's really where this industry is going. You've got to become a dominant listing agent, and it's just a skill set. And remember, anything that is a skill can be developed. You just have to put your energy, your time, your resources, invest in yourself, invest in a coach, learn these skills, learn these capabilities, and you guys will survive whatever comes our way in the future. Gina, you're amazing. I knew it was gonna be fantastic. You over-delivered. And for everybody listening in, make sure you guys give Gina lots of love and connect. I know you're on Facebook. Just reach out, connect with her, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks, Gina.
John, thank you. You rock. So appreciate it.
See you.
Bye.